room, and they immediately starts quoting a calorie chart, blocking metabolism everywhere they go. Let me go further, okay. Now think of the topoisomerase inhibitors, doxorubicin, irinotecan. Now, these are the drama squad. Okay, this is on a light note. Don't take me too seriously, yeah? Now, these are the drama squad. They twist stories, untwist them, then supercoil them back again. Now, if you want office gossip, trust me, they'll make you dizzy before lunch, eh? I'm not so sure if they've met the guy of their dreams still. Now, let me go further. Enter the monoclonal antibodies, trastuzumab, rituximab. Now, these are the bougie pharmacists. Very classy, very specific. You know, they only hang out with the people who express the right receptor. So, trust me, if you're not in her vibe, you can't connect to her. So if you're not HER2 positive, sorry, you're not invited to the achama. No. Now, finally, I'm sure you're getting yourself, eh? Finally, the immunotherapies. Pembrolizumab, nivolumab, and these are the motivational speakers of pharmacy. They don't just fight cancer themselves. No. They hype your body to do it. They're the ones on your WhatsApp group at 2 a.m. saying, guys, you've got this, you have not done this. Meanwhile, you are the one fighting with the landlord about rent. And they're always plotting, eh? They're flirting. So, you see, whether it's oncology or in our profession, personalities do vary. But the goal is the same, fighting the good fight. Speaking of good fights, today's program is packed with innovation, science, and brilliant minds, and ready to pitch and share. So I want us to go straight to it and ask yourself, if you're an anti-cancer, which of these groups are you? I think I can see your group. Nastaki kuambia watu. Thank you so much. Today will be an exciting program. So I said after this, we'll break briefly for tea. I do believe it's ready. If you don't like tea, you can be someone's cup of tea, rather. So we'll do that for 15 minutes. Then we'll go to our breakout rooms. We'll have innovation right here. All right, I've been given some slight changes in the program. Na mkuu akinena nami ni nani nikatae. So as they are confirming the next bit that you're going to do, all right, just to remove that strangeness before, let me just find out which group do you think your neighbor is? Not that neighbor, your neighbor back at home. Yes, of the anti-cancers. Which group do you think they fit? Usiogope, tutamwambia. You can greet us and say what you're looking forward to. Don't worry.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Mayo, upgrading pharmacy.
Let's give a round of applause, kidogo, sindio? Namna hiyo, si rahisi. Tell us what you love about it.
Come to that.
Wow. Thank you. Let's give a round of applause again. All right, let me see this other side as I'm preparing the next speaker. Hello, how are you?
I'm fine.
What is your name?
Joy.
Joy. Oh, wow. You'll be a joyful pharmacist. What do you look forward to get to experience today?
Connecting with people.
Connecting with people. If you were to define yourself as a drug which drug would you be? Okay, let's see.
Aspirin.
You think aspirin? Hey, you're dangerous. Aspirin. All right. You're very sick. Aspirin. Hey, okay. All right. Hey, that is a tough one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as I said earlier, there's been a slight change to our program. You know, good things should come first, right? So I know I'd said about breakfast, but stomach that idea. I just want to introduce a very important guest. She has told us that she's having a flight right now. The flight will be leaving, but she's not leaving us yet. She has to break the bread that she had prepared in a great way. So the next presenter is currently the program officer in charge of treatment, palliative care, and survivorship pillar at the National Cancer Control Program. And she coordinates all the activity pertaining to cancer treatment, including partnering with the health experts in both public and the private sector to develop policies and guidelines to inform best practice in cancer treatment. She's a pharmacist with a master's degree in health economics and policy, and a bachelor degree in pharmacy both from the University of Nairobi. She previously worked at a national quality control lab, so you know the presentation will be of quality standard, and she did that for 7 years as a senior analyst, where she oversaw ensuring quality of medicines and medical products through standardized analytical procedures. And she has done amazing work. She has had from abstract to different local and international conferences, and today we are honored to have her here. She's very passionate about collaborations in developing robust health system to improve the quality of life for patients in oncology space. So, wow, this is an opportunity of a lifetime for us. And at this particular time, I want to welcome Dr. Joyfrida Chepchumba, the Program Officer, National Cancer Control Program. Let's give her a round of applause. I don't think that those claps are enough. Let's continue. Karibu sana daktari. Nitaensure hiyo ndege isikuache. Wacha niende nisimame na pilot.
Okay, good morning all. Thank you, MC, for the introduction. It's good to see my senior colleagues here and some of my junior colleagues that were in the university with, and my peers, Dr. Chester, my former classmate. So yes, those are my credentials. I'm a program officer at the Ministry of Health under the National Cancer Control Program. And I'm a pharmacist, graduated 14 years ago. And I think it's been an interesting journey. I think when you finish pharmacy school, sometimes you're not sure where the path will take you. You sometimes think you'll go into some hospital or something. And I think from my presentation, you'll see that there are very different pathways that you can take in pharmacy. So I'll just have a few introductory slides. So there's a big question that has been floating. Yesterday, you had a presenter from the NCI, then I'm standing here from the NCCP. So who's the Cancer Control Program? So we are the Ministry of Health technical focal point with the primary role of coordinating the implementation of cancer control activities and programs in accordance with the cancer control strategy within the health systems. So basically, we are the arm of the Ministry of Health. So if the CS wants some policies or the DG wants some policies, we are the program that implements that. So we also provide capacity building, technical support to both the county and national facilities, and we coordinate partnerships and collaborations, as well as monitoring and evaluation. So there's a lot of data we collect also from the facilities to know what is happening, what interventions do we require, and what support do they need. So I'm not sure what you know about cancer and its burden, but it's the third leading cause of death in Kenya after infectious and cardiovascular diseases. And the burden is projected to rise to 58,000 cases by the year 2028. And you'll notice from the next slides that women actually are more affected than men. And one of the key messages that we pass along is that diagnosis, early diagnosis is actually key. So if you've been able to see this picture before, for the past, let's say, 10 years, this picture has not changed much, yeah? Breast cancer has always led in terms of incidence, then cancer of the cervix, then prostate cancer. And I think I saw there's a lot of abstracts that the students have been doing on prostate cancer, which is quite interesting. This is the third cancer in the country. In terms of mortality, we see a different picture. The cancer of the cervix is the one leading because it's quite an aggressive cancer, and most of the time the diagnosis is late, yeah? Because by the time you notice the symptoms, it's actually quite advanced. At least for breast, you can notice something, you can palpate and find something, but for cervix, most of the time, by the time you get the symptoms, it's quite advanced. So that is the picture in terms of mortality. I'm trying to move this a bit. Okay. All right, so let's go to policy framework. So at the ministry, everything has to start from the policy. That is the top guidance that we have. So on the global scale, we have certain initiatives. The first one being the cervical cancer initiative to eliminate cervical cancer by the year 2030. And I think I didn't see any abstracts on cervical cancer. Did anyone write something on cervical cancer? It's the leading cause of mortality. Yes, so we have 3 targets. 90% of girls to be vaccinated by the age of 15, 70% of eligible women to be screened, and 90% to be treated. Those who have been screened and are found to have precancerous lesions to be treated. 90% of them. So you'll find the first target of 90% that is implemented through the vaccines program. So that is not the cancer program, but we support them by advocacy, by capacity building, but they're the ones who actually coordinate this HPV vaccination. But on the screening, we really support the facilities on that. The healthcare workers to be able to diagnose cancer within 60 days. And the third one, of course, which is very core, comprehensive breast cancer management. And the goal here is to avert 2.5 million deaths by 2040. The next one is something that is very close to my heart, the Global Initiative for Childhood Cancer. September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and this is something we are really, really following closely. Currently, we don't have good data on childhood cancer, but from the snippets that we have, we are not having good survival rates in the country. We're having probably 30%. Meanwhile, our counterparts in the developed countries are having 90% survival rate. So the WHO initiated a global initiative to improve this survival rate to 60% by the year 2030. So we are, as a country, we're implementing this strategy. So these are our beautiful documents that we've developed so far, yeah? Without this, we don't have guidance. We don't have guidance on how palliative care should be conducted in the country. We don't have a guidance on screening and early diagnosis. So all these documents give us direction. We have even cancer communication strategy. We have specimen handling, breast cancer screening and diagnosis action plan. And all these documents, you can find them on that website, nccp.or.ke. So the overall document that we are implementing on a day-to-day is this cancer control strategy. So far, we're implementing the third one, and I'll just highlight the key aspects. I think yesterday someone could have mentioned this, about the 5 pillars of this cancer control strategy. The first one being prevention and early detection. Second one being the diagnosis part, that is imaging, pathology, and laboratory medicine. Third being treatment, palliative care, and survivorship, and that is where I coordinate. And then we have the 4th pillar on advocacy, partnerships, coordination, and financing. And the 5th is now on basically data. And you can see data is right in the middle because we need data in all the pillars. We need data for prevention measures, for diagnosis, for treatment, and for advocacy. So what is the role of a pharmacist in policy? It's good to note that the education you're getting here in your undergrad offers a very vital foundation for public health. So basically what we are doing where I am is public health interventions in various things. So if you want to specialize, you can specialize in a couple of things. A master in public health, that is just a general. You can also have a master in health economics and policy, in global health, in health system management, and even in oncology pharmacy. All these tailor-make you to the program work. So some of the roles that a pharmacist will play in policy is to lead teams to develop policy and using evidence-based cancer control strategies. So you can't develop anything without some evidence. That's why we're saying data is core. It's in the center of all this. Another core area is supply chain management. This, from a program level, it's wider. It's not just about sending KEMSA a list and then they deliver drugs. This one you also have to think of partnerships with the pharma, on getting access programs, on getting some price reduction on some core oncology products. It even involves talking to, the ministry to give you some money, at least to support the oncology drugs, and we were able to do some of these things. Another key role is forecasting and quantification. You really need to get your numbers right. What are the needs for the country in terms of oncology medicines? Another key role is vaccine, both development and delivery. Pharmacovigilance, we're also involved in the annual budget. At the ministry, you're a key person, especially if you have these specializations, you're able to sit at those different tables where they discuss budgeting, among others. Another core area is capacity building for the oncology workforce on best practices. And the last but not least, leadership and partnerships. As a pharmacist in policy, you are a leader. You are the one who will be asked questions all the time. As the team lead in this technical working group, what do we do? What do you advise us? So, the other key area that academia can be involved in policy includes being key stakeholders in technical working groups. And this is actually very key. We have a couple of stakeholders that we involve in our working groups. We also require academia in the implementation of cancer control strategies. And I remember when we were in undergrad, we had a mandatory course on HIV before you graduate. And we are really hoping we can get a quick course, and we have the material, a quick course on just cancer prevention and control. Just something simple, something that when you enter into service, you can help us both in prevention, in early screening. Treatment, you may not be able to do much because that one requires specialization. But in the first pillars of prevention and early detection, we can actually have pharmacists playing a key role, even without specialization. Academia also involved, of course, in the training of specialized oncology workforce, and it's good to see some of the master's program that Kabarak are offering here. The other key area is technology and innovation. I think I've seen some work on that that has been implemented. So let's look at some key things that we've been able to develop to just improve our work. We have an e-learning platform, and this is an open source platform that either of you can actually access. So you'll get a content there on the early diagnosis of cancer, and this has been summarized for primary health workers. You're able to get CPD points and a certificate from this. So I think the key message is that we all bring something to the table. So wherever you are, don't shy away. As a pharmacist, you are an integral part of this discussion, and you are able to drive change. You are able to impact policies. So whatever foundation you're acquiring from Kabarak University, you'll actually need it as you progress on in your career. So thank you very much. You can follow the program on those different social media handles. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joy Freda, for that insightful session. Now, let's give her a round of applause. Thank you. Now, let's move from dispensing drugs to dispensing algorithms. So I want to invite our next speaker, and our next speaker is a pharmacist by training and a scientist by passion. He's a senior research scientist at Google, where he develops and validates artificial intelligence and machine learning tools to forecast food insecurity and analyze its drivers. So before joining Google, he was a senior research scientist and manager at IBM Research Africa in Nairobi, leading the discovery science and applications team. His projects range from building foundation models for small molecule drug design to machine learning for global health to patient-controlled data exchange or care continuity. Dr. William Ogalo holds a PhD in biomedical informatics from Columbia University in New York and a Bachelor of Pharmacy degree from the University of Nairobi. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome to Dr. William Ogalo.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, as you heard, my name is William, and I'm a scientist at Google. And since my talk is short, I'll probably just begin with my own story. I was in school at UON. I am a student of 2009, so that's when I finished my school. And then I went to work in Eldoret. For all of you who know Eldoret, you know about Moi Referral, and you know about AMPAT. So I was there for for my internship for 6 months, and then I stayed more for like a year doing my residency with Purdue University and AMPAT. And from there, I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to go and pursue health informatics in Columbia University in New York. And I was there for 5 years. And why I did that was because we used to round with doctors, and we used to see how care is provided in Moi referral. And the biggest challenge back then was everything was based on paper records, and we were trying to think of ways of innovating around patient care records, and especially in the field of HIV, because AMPATH is one of the leading orgs in HIV. And I just got an internship basically trying to use computer science and information management for solving healthcare problems. And that's what made me want to do this shift in my career. So when the scholarship came, I just applied and just told them, you know what, I want to do something around how to improve patient care, adverse drug reactions, recording of prescriptions on the T-sheets, and using that information electronically to improve patient care. And then I was lucky enough to get the scholarship because of my story, and because of that, I pursued my career in health informatics as a PhD. But then when I came to Kenya, I was coming back to Kenya because I wanted to come back and contribute to the society here. I didn't get a job that would make sense for me until I joined IBM. So for about 7 months, actually I was jobless for 7 months back in the day. So it's not a bad thing to be jobless, just stay focused. But I was hoping that I could just join something where I can contribute and be more impactful, right? So when the chance came, and I wasn't jobless because I was looking for a job. I had a job, but there was the elections, there was like a lot of things going on. So the companies were like, we don't want to hire people and all that. But eventually, of course, I joined IBM in 2018. And when I joined IBM, as you heard, I was working on a lot of problems that have to do with how to use technology to solve problems. And because we were in Kenya, one of our first projects was really around how to improve access to patient records. So what we were doing was to build a digital health infrastructure based on something called blockchain, if you guys know about blockchain, to share records for patients amongst different care providers, but with the caveat that the patient essentially can control who can see their records and basically know what was used for their records. And why were we doing this? Because we believe that in the future, your data will be very key as a person and as a patient to how your well-being and actually how it's used to influence research in a point of view that you are also sort of like compensated, or you get value for your records being used for something else. And then from there, we moved on to machine learning stuff. So I basically just took up and learned a lot about like programming and coding in machine learning. And essentially there we were trying to look at global health problems. So we were working for Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and their goal was basically just to see how we can use machine learning to analyze data sets. I did work in MNCH, I did work in COVID-19, just to see how we could learn and see, for example, how COVID was impacting caregiving in the hospitals, especially in terms of like numbers of guests coming to the hospital and so on and so forth. And also, I then moved to drug discovery because the company was shifting a policy to move towards drug discovery. And then we were looking at how do you design molecules with machine learning from scratch, de novo molecule design, right? And we built up like what we call a foundation model, basically whatever can, a big model that can basically work on anything that can then be used for designing new molecules, and then seeing how that can be used to basically move the process of drug discovery from, like, let's say 10 years to about 3 years, right? And this was inspired by the events in COVID-19 when we saw new drugs coming in very quickly. So the thought was, how can we use technology to basically get new drugs faster? And then I joined Google Research 2 years ago. And what we are doing there is to solve grand problems. And I'll talk a bit some more in my work. But the point there is that I now work on food security research. I look at how we can forecast hunger prevalence in the global south using technology like machine learning. So with that short introduction, I'm just going to give a very short talk of how we could do the same things and how us as individual young pharmacists can contribute towards new technology and to redefine our profession. I know most of us know that once we are finishing school, I'm going to be owning a pharmacy. I'm going to be I'll be a clinical pharmacist. But as we saw from the previous talk, there are so many different kinds of roles within the pharmacy profession and without, like, outside the pharmacy profession, basically. So you want to be able to think about, like, how do you innovate better and how do you come up with new ways of redefining your own self and your own profession. So based on this particular talk, I said we should talk about the creative leap, innovating in cancer research, and how to redefine the future of our profession. So, but before I go to that, let me just talk about, like, my current work. I work for Google Research. We are in 2 sites. We have a site in Accra, which was sort of like founded in 2018 and has been doing most of, like, our AI work. But we also have an office in Kenya, and the Kenyan office, before we began doing research, was already existing there, like, for about 15 years, right? So it's about 18 years now since we opened the Kenyan office, but now we're also doing our own work in the Nairobi office. And our current work is essentially called impact-driven research and moonshots, or in short, iDream. The idea is that we know Google is a corporate company, but also Google can provide impact to the world, right? And we want to provide impact from the point of view of technology and data so that we can make more information useful for everybody, right? Our current team in iDream does a lot of very crazy research that is going on right now. We have work in flood forecasting. We have work in open buildings. So in the flood forecasting work, we are trying to look at how you can predict riverine floods in high-risk areas, as well as now urban floods that occur because of, like, construction and things like that and bad weather patterns. And then in open buildings, we look at how we can map the entire scape of possible buildings in the world. Right now, we have about 1.8 billion buildings that have been documented in the global south. And we use this for many things, like, how can you know where people live so that we can provide things like vaccines and so on and so forth. We have work on weather prediction from satellite images. Remember that in the southern part of the globe, we don't have, like, the right number of, like, rain gauges, rain sensors, and all that. So we look for new ways of understanding how you can predict weather. And we just launched this particular solution into about 45 countries in Africa. So we can tell your current weather just by knowing that this came from satellite images, right? If you search right now on Google and say weather today in this area, it will tell you, like, what's going to happen the next half an hour, and it's based on the work from our offices in Kenya and Accra. Other works include things like traffic emissions, voice recognition for African languages. We've done work in, like, ultrasounds and how to use ultrasound to basically, understand the well-being of a pregnant mother, and some work on wildfires, earthquakes, and disaster management. But my current work is now on what we are seeing the second bottom left, which is food security forecasting. And we work with different kinds of partners to try and look at how we can forecast food security. Cool. So back to, like, my very short talk on why we should think about cancer and innovating in this particular field. I am not a specialist in cancer at all, but I know what we should do about technology in this space, right? So if you look at our role and the whole scape, you see that there's a clear shift towards how to make these cancer therapies much better for individual users, right? And this is evidenced by the fact that about 75% of new drugs that are being made are essentially being personalized. They're being made for personalized medicine. And this industry is going to be about $250 billion USD by the year 2028. So it's a huge industry for cancer research, especially in the US. And it's believed that by innovating around this new therapies, you can reduce adverse drug reactions by up to 40%, right? So we should be doing something in this space as well. As long as we are able to do it, let's do it. And the funny thing is that I think in our context in Africa, we don't really think of innovation from the point of view of drug discovery and manufacturing. We think of it from a point of view of patient care. It's very, very important for both of them to be like a thing that we should care about from the point of view of how we educate people and how we basically profess in our professions. And I was very, very happy when I saw a program slide, this one, around these specific areas of work and pharmacology in oncology, right? As well as in manufacturing. These are very, very critical courses that we should actually think about to drive our nation and Africa and the global south. And why is it imperative, right? Why are we doing this? Why should we do this? There are three main things, I think, in my point of view. Number one is that drugs are still toxic, right? So we need to find new ways in which we can find drugs that are less toxic and maximize efficacy, right? So cost-benefit ratio for drugs, like, when you maximize the efficacy through like targeting more specific molecules that are, or proteins in the body, then we can minimize the side effects of the drugs, right? Another thing that is very, very important is basically the fact that in cancer treatment, we often get things like resistances, remissions, and all that. And you really want to think about how you can get drugs that can basically be used by different people without the worry of them becoming resistant, right? And then the last thing is about cost. How can we improve the manufacturing process as well as care processes to make treatment more accessible and sustainable to everybody, right? These drugs are still very, very expensive, and they can't be used by everybody without us thinking about how do we get new ways of making these things sustainable and accessible. This chart on the left there, just on the right, shows you around about the idea that what it means about toxicity, right? Because of new innovations, we've had now a dramatic decrease in the rates of things like nausea and vomiting, hair loss, infection risk, and things like fatigue. So basically, because of new innovations, we are able to create new drugs that basically are less toxic or have less adverse drug reactions, which is pretty, pretty important for cancer treatment. The other thing is, what are people doing right now, right, in terms of these research frontiers? And I'm calling out just two main things, the one that I think I found important. Number one is on drug discovery itself, as I said. So because of things like machine learning, because of things like AI, we are basically able to now get drugs manufactured or designed or discovered very, very quickly, right? You guys remember from the time when we had COVID, it took only about 18 months to get a vaccine to COVID. That was unprecedented. And it's because of things like technology and so on and so forth. What I'm showing there is something called AlphaFold, right? Which is an innovation from our Google team called Google DeepMind. And the idea there was to sort of create 3D structures of proteins based on just a simple sequence or 2D images of the same molecule, right? Before that, about 150,000 proteins were known in the world. Their 3D structures were known. Right now, because of technology, there are over 200 million molecules of 3D proteins that are known. And you can imagine how this can open up areas of research for biology and beyond, from target discovery all the way to testing of efficacy of drugs, right? So we can do so much by investing in technology and innovation so that we can be able to get and unlock these very, very difficult tasks that have been there from the past, right? At the same time, think about now on the clinical side, we are seeing that a lot of, there's a shift in even how people are submitting new molecular drugs for, the FDA, for example. And the approvals of immunotherapies that are targeted are really growing over time, right? So for example, in 2015, only a small portion was, what immunotherapy that are targeted. And right now, we have a much, much bigger amount that has targeted, that have already been approved for market use. So there's a shift towards personalized medicine in our space. And it actually opens up so many different kinds of doors for different kinds of opportunities. Think about compounding, for example. Think about chemotherapy and how to mix them, right? These are new ways we can think about how we can use our profession alongside technology to innovate and improve the experience of the patient, right? And then in clinical practice, again, I think there are two main things. Again, things like dosing of the, specifically dosing based on the profile of the patient's genetics or things like that, are becoming way, way more important than ever, right? So for example, you can see from here that for this particular drug, there is dose requirements, for example, right? So for a good number of patients, you need to adjust their doses because of their profiles, right? Not everybody will have the same profiles when it comes to how they consume the doses. That's one thing. The other thing is that in African context, we are oftentimes not part of clinical trials, right? So we learn a lot from pharmacovigilance and things like that. So we need to be very sure that what we are doing is not just one size fits all for our communities and our people. We should think about how to engineer and think critically how to learn from our experiences and our patients' experiences so that we can come up with formulas and algorithms for dose scheduling and things like that based on their clinical profiles, right? And genetic profiles. And then also we think about digital health as a very, very big thing. I think you've seen a bunch of talks on this already. There's a clear shift towards how to improve monitoring and caregiving when the patient is out of sight, right? Right now we have things like wearables, Fitbits, mobile apps, AI-powered platforms, and so on and so forth, that can be used to monitor your patient even when you're not there, right? And us as pharmacists, oftentimes in our context here, we are the first link to the patient's care processes, and oftentimes the last link as well. So we always open the loop and close the loop, right, in both ways. They come to the pharmacy first before they see the doctor, which is pretty common in our African setting, right? And things like this can help us know and tell a better story about the patient when they're off the clinic or off our pharmacies. And we should think about how to innovate here. There are so many different ways. My friend here who owns Zendawa is doing a very good job about this. And I'm very happy that we are basically getting that particular traction in this particular space. So in closure, actually it's a very short talk. It's a new era, right? And our roles should change. Right? I don't think it's impossible. I think we can do it. I have done it myself to change my profession, to contribute better. Many people have done the same thing. I believe we all have the power to, contribute in different ways. But in the field of innovation in cancer, particularly, I believe that there are three main roles we should think about to improve our profession. Number one is to do research, right? I think we need to upskill ourselves when it comes to conducting research. We are probably the most complex healthcare profession, in my point of view, that can advance anything to do with drug knowledge, right? And drug knowledge is not about just the use. It's the entire pipeline from discovery all the way to monitoring the effects and side effects. Right? So we should play a key role in trying to improve our skills in all these different points of view, right? Drug discovery, target discovery, clinical trials, pharmaceutical care, and all those good things. We should think about how to do and publish work and knowledge about research that we get or evidence that we get from our endeavors in this particular field. Number two is that we need to be genomic experts, right? So if you think about going for further studies like master's program and all that, there are things like bioinformatics or computational biology and things like that that are very, very important in understanding how genomics can affect clinical care. And it's a critical gap in terms of like knowledge, especially in the African context, right? We don't have enough experts who are genomic experts who can help us profess and train even more people. So it's actually an open field. In the US, this field of genomics is not more than 20 years old, right? Remember when they did the whole human genome project? It was like only early 2000s, right? So it's pretty open to everybody, on all of us, to think about these new professions and become experts in them. And then lastly, we should champion technology. We all know that things are changing right now. We have ChatGPT, we have Gemini, we have all these new technologies that are basically getting an inflection point in the entire world and in the entire industries of the world. We should adopt ourselves to these technologies so that we are not left behind, but instead we complement each other and improve patient care as well as our profession. So I'd like to stop there and just wish you everything, the very best. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Gallo, for that insightful presentation. From pharmacy to data science, your work shows us how technology and health can merge to solve real global challenges, like even food insecurity and what this conference entails. It's definitely a reminder that indeed our profession has no boundaries when innovation leads the way, definitely. Now, to keep this conversation going, we've had two powerful presentations from Dr. Joyfrieda and Dr. Gallo. I want now to move into the Q&A session, and guiding us through this is a leader who represents the Voice of Pharmacy students and the future also of our profession, and he's the president of the Kabarak University Pharmacy Students Association, Mr. Baraka Dande. Nataka tulete baraka za Q&A. Kindly, let's give him a round of applause. So he'll be leading and moderating the Q&A. Karibu wana prezo. Si uniachie kitu. Kiongozi huna kitu. Thank you. Can see with that suit, he can suit as well, eh? Asante.
Thank you so much. Such a wonderful session just to get to hear from our speakers. And just before I welcome any questions from us, it got me thinking, and to our speakers, I'd really like to know, first of all, how do you see technology shape the conventional pharmacy practice to Dr. Ogal? How do you see it shape the conventional pharmacy practice from the normal dispensing we are used to, or just working in a facility handling the medication? Since you've experienced the tech, how do you see it? The other microphone?
Thank you. That's a very good question, and I think it's going to be a broad impact. One thing I think people misconceive is that this technology will take our jobs. I am a believer that it will not take our jobs, but we can't be left behind, right? We cannot be left behind, right? Mostly because tech will automate almost everything, from pill counting to dispensing to packaging. It's coming. In the US, if you go to a hospital in the US, they don't even do, they basically just program compounding, for example. They do programmed compounding, right? So tech is coming and it will shift the way we work, right? And I think the most important thing is to adapt, learn it, and upskill in new technology so that we can be part of the story and contribute to whatever domain you're working in, even if it's dispensing or drug discovery or pharmaceutical care, it will change the entire industry, that's for sure. It's happening in computer science, it's happening in manufacturing, it's happening in pharmacy. It will change us, but it won't kill our jobs as long as we are improving as well. But if you don't improve and become the same thing, you're going to be replaced. The same thing, it's across the entire industry, so it's not a no-brainer. But us as professionals, it's a different ballgame. It's hard to replace a human with skills with a machine, right? These machines are good at knowing tasks, but not joining all the dots. And one thing that basically makes us the difference, that makes the difference between us and the computers, to me, my opinion is we have empathy. We can think, we can talk, we can converse, we can feel sorrowful, things like that. So we are sentient, right? Like we can do many things more than just a computer. So our roles should also shift in that regard and basically think about how do we become better care providers for the benefit of the patient and for the benefit of our profession, right? But beyond that, the entire spectrum of drug discovery all the way to clinical pharmacovigilance will be impacted by technology. So just on how we integrate with each other is what really matters, yeah.
Okay, I think in relation to that, just before you sit, how should pharmacy education adapt to prepare future pharmacy for tech-driven roles? What's your thought on that? Simply because I feel probably what you learned is probably what we are learning currently, yet the world is shifting to a different domain of how we are handling medication and how the pharmacy profession runs. How do you think the education system should adapt to this change?
Yeah, another very, very good question. I think we should be teaching new technology in schools. I think we should be doing research in schools more than ever. I think we should shift from didactic knowledge-driven approaches that basically rely on remembering that I was taught X, Y, and Z, to how to use technology that can give me the right, quicker answers, for example. And to me, that means rethinking of how we have the profession and how we teach the profession from the point of view of lecturing and creating new skills, right? And in our context here, my biggest wish, as I said before in the talk, is to think about drug discovery, because we are lagging behind in that point of view. We don't innovate in drug discovery in the African context. We're really lagging behind. And we only tend to use the big pharmas to create drugs that as we think we do the rest, like we manufacture generics and all that. But I think we have the potential to move, for example, from pharmacognosy to real drug discovery using our own knowledge and our context, right? I think we have so much we can do. We have so much knowledge that can be used for that, but we are not currently actively pursuing it. So that's one angle. The other angle is on how to handle information, right? So for example, right now, if I wanted to do a paper, it's very easy for me to go to ChatGPT or Gemini, and basically it will do everything for me from end to end. It will give me the intro, the prior work, the methods, the discussion. So as people in education, we need to find new ways of assessing knowledge and skills of our students, right? Because if I only do assignments and I give you a very good paper, I wouldn't know if it's from ChatGPT or from your own individual work, right? So as educationists, I think we should think about how we evaluate skills and knowledge for the sake of getting the right professionals out of our dots.
Okay, thank you. Just the last one from my side. What would you tell your campus self, or what would you do differently so that you become better, probably in enhancing pharmacy and tech and being the best out of it?
Yeah, I really push it. So for me, yeah. So, but the key thing as I say to young people is to tell your story, right? And The way I tell my story is in three things. I tell what I have done, I talk about what I'm doing now, and then I talk about what I will do, right? So it's more of like history, present, and future. And it's one coherent story, right? And the thing for me is to think about, you put your goals up ahead, like 5-year goal, what's your 5-year goal? And then you think about what are you doing, what have you done, what will you do, right? And along the way, you create artifacts for yourselves. When I say an artifact, it's like a paper, a publication, a software development tool, a conference presentation, things like I took a part in a conference or I took part in a panel discussion and all that. So you build your story by knowing what you want to do, as well as creating artifacts or proof points for your particular journey. And in so doing, it will then give you a way to open new doors, right? Like I didn't go to Colombia because of one thing, right? Because somebody thought I was prepared enough to go to Colombia. The same thing for most of us who are in this hall. If you're here for a purpose, and it's not because of chance or luck. You're just prepared to meet that intersection of chance and luck, right? So that to me is be prepared always and tell your story. Talk about your past, talk about your present, talk about your goals for the future, and you will always be on the edge of the frontier of everybody.
Thank you so much. Now, just before we go to Dr. Frida, I'd like to welcome any question for him. Okay. So who goes first? Okay, Dr. Nyandoro.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Vincent. I teach pharmaceutics. We know what technology can do in our delivery of knowledge to our students and in research. However, we are struggling to incorporate that technology into our research, into our teaching, simply because tech is very expensive. For example, if I want to show my students how to have 3D printing of tablets, we don't have that technology. If I wanted to show my students how to use AI to optimize my formulation, or simply to purchase a zeta sizer for nanotechnology, so it's very expensive. So in that regard, then, Google being a giant industry, do you partner with institutions like Kabarak to provide that enabling technology for us to produce this next generation pharmacists who are, tech savvy and equipped?
Very good question. So two things. Number one, I think, is the scope, like how do we make it work? And then number two, is Google involved in all this, right? So how do you make it work, in my opinion, is yes, we have constraints around technology, equipment, data in the African context, especially in our context in Kenya, for example. But I do believe while there are barriers, right? For example, I think the biggest thing in AI and machine learning is actually electricity, right? And internet, right? And the data, right? So three things: electricity, internet, and data. But in Africa, we have problems with electricity, right? We don't even have, we can't sustain 1 full week of no blackouts to run a data center. So there are fundamental challenges that are already there that will still be there, but doesn't mean we cannot innovate, right? And there are different ways we can rely on innovation, right? One thing I remember when I was a bit younger and I was working for myself, and we never had data for local use cases, right? But it didn't stop us from learning the new techniques of handling the problems. What we did was to sort of learn from other places, whether it's Europe or South America, where things are available, right? So we would think about how can I use the same data, but build a model over there, then transfer that knowledge to our local context in a legitimate way, right? That's one example. So knowledge transfer from other locations would be important. And with technology like AI, it's possible to I don't have to do the actual manufacturing, I can simulate a manufacturing process, right? So it can be virtual simulation of like, what's happening in a given context of manufacturing or something like that. You can look at how you could use or build machine learning models that can help you, say, for example, do virtual clinical trials. So we are learning the knowledge. We don't have it on the ground, but we are still learning about how to solve the problem. So I do think there will be still fundamental challenges, but we shouldn't be like a block of saying, I can't do this. We should think about how can I use whatever I have locally and even abroad to solve the local problem where there's more access over there, right? And then when it comes to like what Google is doing, so Google has the main company that does mostly technology stuff, and then it does the impact work, right? So at the moment, our current lab is not doing a lot of healthcare work. We are doing food security, languages, and all that. It's planned to be done in the next couple of years to move into like healthcare domains, because we know it's a big problem in Africa. But typically, we still have something called Google.org that provides funding to many students and institutions, as long as they can show that they are doing something in the field of AI and machine learning. So we can talk after this, and then we can see how to do that. So the idea is that now we are able to, I think they normally have like regular calls around like who calls for funding and all that. And if you have a good proposal, it can definitely go in, and then you can get some funding that can be used for an actual point of view of research in AI and machine learning. And then lastly is we do have things like Gemini that are now available to students. I think it was just announced yesterday, so all of you can look it up. I can provide the link to one of the providers here, to the host over here. And the idea is that now Gemini is now available for students for at least 1 year subscription. So you can learn so much from just playing around with those particular tools that are available to the students in Africa. Only for like about 5 countries, including Kenya, so it's really covered.
Thank you, Dr. for that illuminating presentation. My name is Dr. Ogaja. I've been a lecturer in pharmaceutical chemistry here at Kabarak. Two things. One of the things, I think last year I attended a conference, the FIP conference, and we heard a lot about how technology has entered the manufacturing space, including the application of things like blockchain, which, to a BBC like me, that was very interesting. But now these are the things that we need to come and bring to the students. So I don't know what your recommendation is now as these things are coming in, how do you then, in Africa, bring them into the educational space? The second question I had was, now you said something about patients, when you're monitoring patients remotely, and I have a personal experience. I think my sister-in-law was recently diagnosed with colorectal cancer, and I'm just wondering now as a professional, how can you support patients like that outside, once they've left the hospital? What do we have here in Kenya or in Africa that can help patients like that be monitored remotely? Thank you.
A very good question. So the first one is around like how to bring in new technology into like the education space. It's a challenging problem, but the most important thing is basically how do you make upskilling easier and faster, right? For both the tutors, so the lecturers, and the students. And I honestly, my way of learning new things, and I learn new things almost every month or every week. Just this month, I'm doing something called Bayesian inference, new to me. But it's always just like, you need to motivate people to just spend time on new content, right? To me, that's like the key differentiator of getting a new skill. If you like something and you really want to get it, just spend time on it, and then you will learn it, right? And then we have a bunch of like resources, whether it's like online or YouTube, just to upskill, talk to people, talk to other guys who are doing the same thing. Subject matter experts, for example, can be part of like the journey. And in fact, even in our own, like the way we solve problems, for example, we don't do it by our own selves, right? I think the biggest thing is just the drive to learn new solutions, and then to partner with guys who have the expertise for that particular role, right? So we, for example, I work with WFP on our food security work, where we don't do anything about who makes what decision around the actual food stuff, but we learn from them and they tell us exactly what they are doing to address what they care about when they're addressing food security problems. Then as we are coming in as the technology partners, where we come and say, okay, given your problem context, here is the best approach, here is the process, and here is the evaluation of the problem or the solution. So that is what we are doing. I think the key thing is just the drive to get better and then to partner with experts in education. And then for telemedicine, it's a huge problem, and I think we are not yet there in Kenya, for example. Right now, most of the things are mostly like phone-based, like telephone-based care, I would say that, which is still telemedicine in a way, but you can imagine, for example, if you're able to have video cameras at home, like Fitbits for every patient, heart rate monitors for every patient that are basically like implants and things like that. And you can tell things like gait, movement, just from analyzing the video cameras, the video camera recordings of the patient at home. So it's still futuristic in our context here, but it's gonna get there at some point, and it's gonna get cheaper. One thing that I remember was like for some clinical trials, I think in the West, they give you a full package, like a telemedicine kit, right, for the patient. So every person in that clinical trial gets like a package, which includes like a monitoring thing, some video cameras for like just monitoring their movement and all that. And it's actually part of how do we make it, like how can we make things like that now cheaper in Kenya and useful for our own patients and our context. But I think it's still a long way, but it will get there.
Thank you so much. Dr. Gal, I think that was our last question due to time constraint. We can move to Dr. Freda.
May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Zogalo and Dr. Joyfrida, for your presentations. My comment has actually partly been answered for you, where Dr. Nyandoro asked about your partners. Oh, my name is Ndubi. Yeah. Yes, I teach pharmaceutical chemistry. So who are your current partners, be it in academia, industry, or government? And that then, as Dr. Vincent said, in future, when you expand your net, then please include Kabarak in that net. Yeah, but I would still want to know who your current partners are. And then I had two comments for Dr. Joyfrida. The first one is on your prevalence and mortality data for cancer. I think I saw some cancer types there which are not very prevalent, but they actually contribute a lot to mortality. I saw CS, stomach, and something else. So from a control perspective, how important are those to the program, where you have cancer types that are not really prevalent, but they still contribute in terms of mortality? And then the second comment was for pharmacovigilance. We know that pharmacists are leaders in pharmacovigilance, and you mentioned that the control program also carries out pharmacovigilance. What is their role? And I think pharmacovigilance for oncology should be a little more elevated than just normal pharmacovigilance. So what is the control program doing about that? Thank you.
Mine is very, very short. Yeah, we do have a bunch of partners. In healthcare, we work a lot with Jacaranda Health. I don't know if you guys know Jacaranda Health. They do a lot of like MNCH work, and they're actually our partners on the ultrasound work. What they're doing there is to sort of like, if you think of the ultrasound machine, it's very, very big, right? And you can't really make it portable. What we are building there and testing on clinical trials is basically like handheld ultrasound devices that can be used by people like nurses and all that, and make it more easier for every person who is pregnant to know the state of their child. Beyond Jacaranda, we do partner with universities actually. So depending on the problem case, right now the biggest problem case we have right now is African languages and how they can be put into like AI systems so that we can have like more equity in AI. We work with a bunch of schools in Accra and the Greater Ghana to collect the data and then use it for our own models and give back the same knowledge to the institutions. And I'm so sure that in future, as long as the problem is right and the scope is done, we can easily partner with anybody, mostly institutions from the universities and people like that. All right, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. We can appreciate him.
Okay, so for the two questions, Dr. Ndubi. The first one on the cancers that have a low prevalence but a high mortality. In the program, I think one of the key areas that I discovered over time, I think when I joined the program, I didn't even understand the cancer space well, is that we keep saying, oh, patients present late stage, or our outcomes are bad. But actually we realized these patients come to the facilities. Someone will come and say they have, let's say, constipation, and it's an old man, 70 years. Or they have recurrent hyperacidity. Most patients will be treated for what? H. pylori, amoeba, and I'm sure you are witnesses. By the time that patient, 2 years down the line, they are being treated for esophageal cancer, stomach cancer, pancreatic cancer. Because the primary health workforce were not aware of the key symptoms that could be suggestive for cancer. And that's why I was highlighting the e-learning platform. That is a platform that you can see if these symptoms persist in a patient. And as we've had, the pharmacy is normally the first stop. Most community pharmacies, they're the first stop for the patients. Before they go to line up in the hospitals, they'll probably come to you, hey, daktari, nasikia hivi, nasikia hivi. So even as a pharmacist, you can actually go through that course and just get to see these key signs. Don't keep giving someone, laxatives and it's an old man, or omeprazole and what. Please, after some time, just ask them to go and get properly reviewed, because we realize these cancers just mask themselves as other diseases, but they are very aggressive. Like pancreatic cancer, stomach cancer, esophageal cancer, the mortality rate is so high because it is highly aggressive. By the time the interventions are started, it's a bit too late. So early, a high index of suspicion for primary health workers is a key thing that we are trying to advocate for among all primary health workers, which includes even the pharmacists. So wherever you are, kindly just get to know these signs and symptoms of cancer and refer appropriately. Not treat, refer appropriately. On the issue of pharmacovigilance, that's also a key issue. And we've seen different aspects of pharmacovigilance. As we all know, in the facilities, there's the channel of reporting. There's the forms, the reforms, where you report these cases. So from the program side, we collaborate with PPB to monitor which are these drugs maybe that we are getting, frequent reports. And we've seen a lot of them, mostly because cancer drugs are quite costly. So sometimes you find someone counterfeits that drug to sell at the same price, and because people are desperate, they'll probably buy. So we are creating strong networks with the oncology pharmacists across the country to inform us when they find such cases. They brief us as the ministry, and we take that on. And I think the last time we even had an issue with some Herceptin injection, the Pharmacy and Poisons Board informed us, and they even gave out a public statement that there's this falsified product in the market, so be careful. So, and we are also trying to streamline the supply chain. We know we have many drugs for oncology, and sometimes we are not able to stock all of them at KEMSA. So sometimes the facilities have to buy from private suppliers, and controlling that has been a bit tricky. And we've even had some challenges recently where Pharmacy and Poisons went to the facilities and were not happy about some of the medicines that are coming through the parallel imports. So there's a lot of regulation and advocacy that we are really trying to partner together with PPB to ensure that what the facilities are getting is of good quality and will not be harmful to the patient. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Joyce. Dr. Joy Frida. I think due to time, we'll have to stop it there. Thank you so much. We can appreciate her. I have been your Q&A moderator, Baraka. Mbarikiwe.
Don't worry, the Q&A can continue. What you can do, I know we still have questions for Dr. Jofrida and Dr. Gallo. We can note them down. Then as the session continues, we'll be able to hand them over to them and they can be able to respond later. But at this particular time, allow me to break the session so that we proceed to the next activity. That is the masterclass. We'll be moving out to the Sawi Auditorium. I think it's next outside here. Then the innovation will continue at this particular hall. So I'll give us like 5 minutes so that we break. Then we continue with the program as announced. So just be free for those masters. We free to move to the other side. Then 5 minutes, we'll continue with the innovation at this particular hall. If you're not sure if you should be moving, just remain. Don't follow others because they are moving.